up, guys? Matthew here, Actual Exotic Cars. Thought I'd switch things up for a bit. I have wanted to make a video on this topic for a very long time, and the Chinese invasion has began. And what I mean by that is it has been going on for a while, but Chinese cars have been taking off like crazy, and I actually went down for vacation down to Central America about a month or a few weeks ago, and I was shocked by the amount of billboards I saw, the amount of Chinese cars I saw. They were everywhere. So basically, what I kind of want to bring up on this video is the different makes of Chinese cars, kind of what to know about them, some ballpark ideas. Will they ever make it to America, and is it worth owning a Chinese vehicle? So obviously, first impression on a Chinese vehicle, the first thing you're going to think about, oh, Chinese, bad reliability, blah, blah, blah. From what I heard, the new Chinese cars actually aren't that bad, and a lot of them are exact replicas or rip-offs, if you will, of their Western-made counterparts. Surprise! So I thought kind of interesting. One of the most interesting topics and how I kind of got on the Chinese car bandwagon, if you will, was basically after all the sanctions hit Russia. This is Arulam, by the way, Arulam, whatever. It means behind the wheel. It's basically one of the largest, or if the largest, car magazine, if you will, in Russia. And nothing but Chinese cars basically have been featured, or mostly Chinese cars have been featured in this magazine since basically the sanctions hit. So basically all the Western car manufacturers came out, all the Chinese car manufacturers flooded the market with their alternatives, if you will. And to me, there's some very interesting products. And like I said, I didn't really connect the dots till I saw all these in Central America. I know there's a lot of them down in Mexico, and there's also some talks about some of these cars entering the U.S., so it's definitely nice to know a little bit about them, because some of these manufacturers are big. So, first thing first, the Moskvich, they remade it after the manufacturers pulled out of Moscow, Russia. And basically, I've said this in a lot of previous videos, Russian car manufacturers have never really been original, so they've been bought out by different companies. I think Chevy made the Niva or something for a while. If I remember correctly, it's Renault. The French car manufacturers owned Lada, I want to say, for a while. And basically, after everybody pulled out, then the Chinese came in. So the Moskvich 3 is basically a copy or a clone, if you will, of a JAC Motors, which is one of the top vehicles in China. Also, I saw a ton of these when I was in Central America. They're all over the place, so I think it's a very interesting vehicle. I wish I knew a little bit more about them. The big thing that I see from a lot of Chinese makes and manufacturers is electric vehicles. They're going full blaze onto the electric market, if you will, all over the place. If you go to Zarulam, the YouTube channel, most of these videos, actually I would say a majority of these videos aren't just Chinese vehicles, but they're electric Chinese vehicles. So almost all these vehicles that you see here are from Chinese makes that you've probably never even heard of. Livan, Hongqi, Chang'an, Geely, which is probably one of the big ones, Mingxi, I don't even know half of these makes, Jiku. So Chinese car manufacturers have definitely taken full advantage of the situation over there. As far as how does that relate to, first thing, another cool thing that I saw is, like I said, a lot of these are exact replicas or rip-offs of the Western counterparts. Even so much so, I was reading an article probably a few months ago that had a Chinese vehicle next to, I think it was like a Nissan or something, basically saying how the part numbers are pretty much identical and you can interchange the parts between the two. And the advertisement was basically stating if you buy the Chinese one for like half the price, anything ever happens, you can literally put the name brand part into it because that's what it was ripped off of. So that's what a lot of these, like I said, not too original. So JAC, the Geely, from what I understand, this is a mostly electric vehicle, but they do plan on at some point importing their vehicles into the American, North American market. We'll see if that happens. I know there has been a few oddball companies with the whole electric vehicle thing that I wanted to make a video on for a while, but I haven't, unfortunately. The onslaught of electric vehicle manufacturers, probably due to the friendly laws, import laws, and whatnot. with emissions and all that have been flooding the U.S. market. Noticeably, there is a Vietnamese car manufacturer, for example, that is selling cars in the U.S. for the first time. A Vietnamese company has done that. A lot of oddball companies, and obviously China is going to be, a lot of Chinese companies are going to be onto that market. So Chariot's another big, I don't want to say the Chinese big three, if you will. There's a lot more than three. There's a ton of Chinese manufacturers. And there's a lot of vehicles in the U.S. that already are Chinese made. They just have different labels on them. So the Volvos, a lot of the Jaguars, Land Rovers, so on and so forth, or even Harley Davidson, some of them they're making in China. So they might not have a Chinese make associated with them, but they're still made in China. And some of them, even a lot of the, when I was looking at motorcycles and stuff, for example, like Benellis and so on and so forth, like the name used to be Italian, but now it is Chinese. So there are Chinese vehicles already in the market. It's just they're not advertised as such. And I think a lot of the big fear and concern with that is the reliability. So this is an article on Motor Trend, pretty reliable source, basically about Chery entering the U.S. market. From what I understand, I want to say this is a mostly electric vehicle company. I might be wrong on that. They already entered the Mexican market, and again, they're planning on making almost 500,000 vehicles in Mexico. A lot of American vehicles are already made in Mexico, so it would 100% make sense that the U.S. market would get flooded with these vehicles at some point. And if you look at the competition compared to like a Tesla, a Rivian, they would definitely be able to undercut the market. And a lot of these are advertised as surprisingly luxury vehicles. And if you look at some of these vehicles, look at the interiors and whatnot, they seem like a lot more high class, luxury type vehicles, definitely not your base model. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out. This is another Great Wall, which is another gigantic Chinese automaker, if you will. They're also starting to sell vehicles in Mexico. So basically, my theory, if you will, is that they're going to start flooding the Central and South American markets with their vehicles, and the amount of vehicles that they're selling is astronomical. Like JWM, for example, GWM, I'm sorry, is selling upwards of 500,000 globally already, and this is just one of a plethora of companies in China, not even the biggest one by any means. And they're going to basically flood the South American and Central American market. And if there's enough interest, especially like I said with the lax laws regarding hybrid and electric vehicles, I think we're going to see an influx of those in the future. So personally, I have not driven a Chinese vehicle yet. I would like to. I'm sure at some point I will. From what I heard, the reliability is not necessarily too bad. Biggest concerns, I guess, for me would probably be parts, availability of information. Distribution would be another big concern. I don't know. Obviously, I would assume if any of these companies would probably have full-on dealerships, that they would have all of that taken care of. I just find it interesting in light of sanctions and everything. Basically, and like this is the main website for the main auto magazine in Russia. There's an entire tab of nothing but this, literally says Chinese auto. So on the main website, there is an entire tab just for Chinese autos. And a lot of these, like this is basically saying a Chinese clone of an old Jeep Cherokee. So like I said, a lot of these are basically just cheap ripoffs of vehicles that already exist. Will Americans want a Jeep for half the price? Probably. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I've been talking about making a video on the Chinese invasion for a while, so I just thought I would give my thoughts on it and some of the different vehicles that are being offered out there and kind of a little bit of some of the quirks and features. Like I said, a lot of these surprisingly are, at least from the looks of it, are supposed to be more of an upscale or luxury market. However they go, I'm sure at some point they will break through in the U.S. Now, how sales goes, that'll be interesting. How the big three responds, that'll be interesting. And I guess we'll wait and see. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and bye.